She says that we have to quit what we're doing while we're living off grid. And Carolyn is just absolutely furious about this. So I'll explain what we're doing, and then I'll explain what we're supposed to be doing and why we can't be doing this anymore. So today it's really cloudy and been raining most of the morning. I think it's supposed to rain again this evening. So I've been monitoring the new solar panels and the new charge controller. As you know, for the last few weeks I've been upgrading our solar panel system from 10 panels to 12 panels and a new charge controller. And things have been doing really well. Yesterday it was pretty cloudy and we still got a full charge on the batteries. Well, today it's not doing as well. I guess it's just darker. I don't really see it being that much darker, but I guess it is. Yesterday I was running about 15 to 20 amps. Today I'm running about 8. So it's not enough, because we have to run the freezer, and the freezer takes 10 amps. Well, the house. When the freezer's on, the house takes 10 amps. So we're not making enough when the freezer's running. So it's unlikely the batteries will get charged. Now, I'm not going to run the generator until this evening to charge the batteries up. That's the downfall of our system, is the freezer. We have to have enough batteries to run the freezer at nighttime. Now, yesterday I said I'm going to get more batteries, but I don't know how many batteries I would actually need to be able to run multiple days without a good charge. So we're just going to have to run the generator on some days. Now, in order to get enough panels to charge the batteries today, it seems to me I'd have to have about 3 times what we already have. So I got 1,200 watts. Cost prohibitive. It's not even worth it. So the generator, it appears on really cloudy days like this, we're going to have to run it. I also wanted to talk about, since it's kind of an inside video, about our water situation. This is another thing that has been brought up. As you know, we use this camping water heater. It's an on-demand water heater. You can buy these off Amazon. Get the highest BTU rating that you can get. This one is not the highest, and it was kind of a mistake. We have another one just like it, different brand name, but it's obviously got a higher BTU. Now, I don't know what the BTU on either one of them is. I just know this one's less than the old one. My dad bought the old one. I don't know what it was. The reason I know it's less is because when it's wintertime, this one doesn't heat nearly as well as the old one. It still gives us a nice hot shower, but it's not that near boiling hot water that we were getting from the old one. What it does is when you turn the water on, so I have a little valve here that turns the water on. Now, this water is being taken from our IBC tank through an RV pump. And so the RV pump pumps water into this when I open this up. The RV pump senses a pressure drop and kicks on. There's a pressure switch on it. And believe it or not, that's the thing that goes out first on these RV pumps, on these cheap ones. I've actually bought more switches, so I can just replace them. Eventually the pump does give up. These are the cheaper pumps. They're like $30. I replace them once a year. I figure 30 bucks for water, that's not too bad for a year. I would imagine the more expensive ones would last longer. I don't know. Since we have the camper now has a water pump in it. It's much bigger than the one we have. I may take that one out to replace this one that we have when this one wears out. Now, I always keep a backup water pump. It's always up in the attic. That way it goes out, I can switch it out within 10 minutes. What happens now is when I turn the water on, water goes through the water heater, and the water heater senses that there's water going through it and it turns on. Now, we keep this battery door closed, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more here in a second. So we just close the battery door. You may have heard it click. I will try to show you the flames up underneath there. Sometimes you can see them, sometimes you can't. I'll turn it up real high. And so you have instant hot water. The nice thing about these is when you're not using hot water, you don't have to heat the hot water. So if you go to work and you're gone for 12 hours, your water heater, the tank water heater that you have in your house, may kick on 2 or 3 times while you're gone. You haven't used a drop of water. This one only heats the water you're using. Now, the reason we keep this battery door open, 2 reasons. One, this is our newest one, and the pressure switch in there, it has already wore out. I don't know if we did something wrong, goofed it up, whatever it was, but we learned that if we open the door, turn the water on, and then shut the door, it acts as a pressure switch. It just overrides it and kicks on. The other thing that's nice about this is if you leave the door open, you can get cold water out of here. So whatever the water temperature is in the IBC tank is what we can get. Now the only downside to this is the hose that runs into this, the water in it inside the house is warmer than the water in the IBC tank. So in the wintertime, the water here could be 80 degrees because the house gets pretty warm. So when you turn it on, you're getting really hot water. But when this water runs out of the hose and new water is replaced from the IBC tank, that water in the IBC tank may be near 32 degrees. So 80 degrees all of a sudden drop down to 32 degrees. All of a sudden you're taking a cold shower, you got to turn this up. So just be aware of that. What I do is I just go ahead and waste water. I let the hose evacuate the hot water out of it before I even get in the shower. Now this takes 2 D batteries. That's the only power source you have, and it takes propane. They last probably a year, maybe a year and a half. Depends on how much you use it. Now, a lot of people take these camping with them, and they're really nice. We had it when we were in the pop-up camper and then in the truck camper. The downside is the slightest breeze will put that flame out. I mean, just the slightest, just a little bit. So we learned that we had to put it inside the shower tent, which really crowded the shower tent. And then the camper got burned down, the pop-up camper. So we bought a bigger shower tent. Ended up we didn't use it because it was just easier to shower inside the camper, the truck camper that we built. But in the house here, you can see I've got metal plating behind it. And then there's our metal ceiling also. So everything is protected, nothing gets too overheated. Now people will ask me, aren't you worried about the carbon monoxide that comes out of this? Well, not really. You got to understand, people use gas stoves, they use buddy heaters. Carolyn's son's using our buddy heater right now. So you do get some amount of carbon monoxide in your house, I would imagine, but it's not enough to worry about. You don't need to vent this. I've seen elaborate vents going out, and it's just not that important. If you're worried about it, open a window 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch. When you run the buddy heater, they tell you to open a window for a little bit. But we also have carbon monoxide detectors. That's probably the cheapest thing you can do. Go out and get yourself a $10 carbon monoxide detector from Walmart. I have 2. Now everybody says you need to put them on the floor. That's not true. That is such a myth. Carbon monoxide just floats around. It's about as buoyant as regular air. It just floats around all over. It could be down on the ground, could be up at the ceiling, it just floats around. So we have, it's propane that's heavier in air. So if you have a propane leak, you want your propane detector down at the ground. I think there's a huge confusion about this. I've seen RVers make YouTube videos talking about how carbon monoxide is heavier in air. It's just not true. Look it up. You can Google it. Mom has one of these also. So does my dad. But Mom's got it in her bathroom, and she runs a hose to it. And I will say that it gets a little stuffy in her little bathroom. It's a pretty small bathroom. So I opened a window when I was using it at her house, because you do feel like you're losing air. I think it was using all the oxygen inside that little bathroom. So that's another indication that you're going to get carbon monoxide, is when oxygen runs out, you're going to get carbon monoxide buildup. That just the flame can't burn as well. So you're getting carbon monoxide. Buddy heaters have an oxygen sensor, not a carbon monoxide sensor, an oxygen sensor. And when oxygen is low, it shuts off. So the system we have, we've been using for years now. We use it in a pop-up camper. We used it here, and we've never had an issue with it. Never. We bought this one because we thought the old one had went out. People will tell you, if you live on well water, that the little tank, there is a little bitty tank in there, will fill up with calcium deposits, and it will stop working after a while. Well, we've used ours for 6 years and it hasn't stopped working. It's still working. The reason we replaced it was we thought it stopped working. Put this one in, we had a backup one. Turned out it was the water pump, just wasn't sending enough water to the water heater to kick it on. So I've said that I was worried that if he kicked his water heater on and we kicked our water heater on at the same time, that one of them wouldn't work. Well, the other day, Carolyn had this on to fill up her dishes, and he kicked his on, and neither one of them complained that it wasn't working. The reason we knew he kicked his on while she had hers on was when she shut it off, the water pump was still running, so we knew he was running it. That was my big concern about hooking 2 water heaters up to the same line. But you got to have at least 30 pounds of pressure on this. So a lot of people tell me that I need to put the water tank on top of the roof and gravity feed. It won't kick this on. You got to have a water tower 60 feet in the air to get 30 pounds of pressure. I think it's actually 69 feet up in the air. Well, that's just cost prohibitive. I would have to build a huge tower to make that work. People have these ideas, but they don't research their ideas. Instead, what they tell me to do is test it for them. Well, first of all, you put 2,000 pounds of water, because that's what our IBC tank weighs, in my attic or on my roof, the house is going to collapse. No house could handle that much weight in one little area. So in order to build a tower, I would probably have to weld, which means I got to have a welder and enough electricity to run a welder, or I would have to use like 6x6 oak wood to build. It would just be so expensive to build something that big. A water pump running off a battery seems like a better option to me. I know what it is people don't want to build a system like mine that is functional. They want something easy. Just throw it up in the air, easy. What happens is they end up spending more money trying to be easy than if they'd just spent the money and the time to do it right the first time. Just get yourself an RV pump. They're not that expensive. You go to the hardware store, go to a mom and pop hardware store, and you tell them, this is what I want to do. I have an IBC tank, so you take the pump, the connection to the IBC tank, and you say, I want to run it into a garden hose. They will do all the connections for you. Now, this woman told me the other day that she thinks that we're not really off-grid because we use propane. Well, like the generator. We use propane and gas because I have a dual fuel generator, and then I also have a gasoline generator. And she feels like that if we're buying fuel, then we just as well hook up to the grid. And I've done the best I can to be completely disconnected as possible. My thinking is, as long as I'm not getting city water or having to pay the city water bill or getting electric and paying a utility bill, that I'm off grid. I've said this many times. I don't want to deal with company. If SHTF were to happen, I've said this many times, I don't live to prepare for SHTF. You know, stuff hits the fan, this long-term power outages and things. I don't live for that. I live for me. But if SHTF were to happen, all I have to do is shut off the freezer, and I would have plenty of electric to do whatever I needed. Then we could heat our water outside on the grill, the wood burning grill, and we wouldn't have to use propane, and we'd have enough electric to run the well pump and everything we needed. All we got to do is can the food in the freezer. But this woman suggested that I heat the water with the sun. This tells me, once again, either she only thinks that people live in Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico, and Utah, or she has no idea what she's talking about. Today it's cloudy. I'm making 8 amps of electricity. I'm not even making enough to run the freezer today. So what she says that I need to put this up in the air, you know, everybody wants me to put it up in the air, you know, 2,000 pounds up in the air. I mean, that's really safe in my mind, but we're going to put it up in the air. We're going to paint the tank black, and the sun is going to heat the water. It just isn't going to happen. First of all, we're covered in trees. Today, I'm taking a shower. Well, doing it her way, even if I got rid of these trees, which helps us keep cooler. That's the key to these trees, is we don't need an air conditioner. So, cut the trees down. I still would be taking a cold shower today. Now, I'm pretty certain Arizona still has cloudy days. I was there, and there was many cloudy days when we were there. So you can yell and scream at me all you want about how I'm not living off grid until I do it your way. Your way doesn't work. And until I hear an actual solution to getting off propane, I'm just going to continue to do it my way. There is no, what I would recommend is actually using Google. I know that people just say, oh, I got on YouTube and this YouTuber expert tell me, and I get links to YouTubers, and they always have a way of doing it that I cannot. Now, the nice thing about living in Missouri that some Arizonans don't have is I have water. That's why one of the reasons I chose Missouri, is I can get water here. I've seen a lot of YouTubers start an off-grid channel and all of a sudden realize they don't have water. Well, I'd rather buy propane than not have water, because I can live a lot longer on water than I can without propane. What I would recommend is learning what all the off-gridders are doing and connecting the dots of why one is doing it one way and why another is doing it another way. I know there's this YouTuber, he collects rainwater. He's got a huge barn or something, where when it rains he can have plenty of surface area to collect the water. Then he can put the IBC tanks in his barn, keep them warm so they don't freeze. Think about that. Put this up in the air so I can get solar heating. Black tank. When it's winter time, I don't care how much sun there is. When it's 0 degrees outside, your water's going to freeze. People keep telling me different ways to keep my tank from freezing. You know, wrap copper pipe around the chimney of my wood stove. Well, when the wood stove is not running, because I only run it about twice a day, then I let the heat die off, the stove retains the heat, it's a little tiny house, then you have no water running through because what it is if you run the pipe upwards around your chimney, it will actually rotate the water around by itself. But when the chimney cools off, then the water stops flowing, and all of a sudden you're going to have a frozen pipe coming out of the house. So it's going to freeze. The next time the chimney heats back up, that frozen portion of the pipe is going to have a blockage. So your copper pipe's going to blow up right at the chimney. All that water runs down, breaks the glass on your wood stove. So you got to think about all this stuff before you just start telling. You have to think about the failures on your systems that you're recommending, instead of just looking at, oh, look what I can do. Well, we would have hot water throughout the summer, but I'd rather have hot water through the winter. Carolyn's pretty upset about these comments that we have proven for the last 3 years that we know what we're doing. We've got it all figured out, and it works very efficiently around here. So her recommendation is pay attention. You might learn something. So if you click this up next box, it takes you to a video where I was talking about solar panels. So I hope I can inspire you to research the negative instead of just the positive when you're living your dreams. Thanks for watching.